Ultimate wealth is found in wisdom alone.
Well, hello everyone. Neil here and John, and we've been discussing for a while now a couple different interesting ideas that we found really interesting. Many of you probably heard us talk about, ways to maximize happiness in retirement and life satisfaction generally. I've brought up many times, sort of a hierarchy of things to focus on to maximize happiness in life, and this is not directly related to everybody's money, but maybe even the more important thing in many regards, in that, the money needs to be the servant to the goal, and the goal often is life satisfaction. And so a couple of concepts John and I have been discussing, and we've got the resident expert here on the blue zones. And so we're gonna discuss the blue zones a little bit in a little more detail. And what we'd like to do is to kind of cover this and maybe go into a little bit more depth on each of the zones, or maybe there's a topic that stems from this. John, tell me, what do you know about the blue zones? What is that all about?
Yeah. First of all, resident expert might be a little generous, Neil, but thank you for that. I remember hearing about the blue zones back in around 2015, and it was a way to approach life that really appealed to me. First of all, the concept, I'm guessing a lot of people have heard about it, but basically there was a National Geographic study. This man named Dan Buettner and his colleagues found 5 locations in the world where people lived to 100 at a greater rate than the general population, and they lived long and really happy lives. And so they did a study trying to figure out, like, what do all these cultures have in common? And in their studies, they found 9 commonalities between all those cultures. And so there's a series of books, Neil, that kind of talk about the process and talk about how each of those cultures emphasizes those principles. There's a great cookbook that we use at our house a lot. Diet's a big part of it, but there's a lot of other components as well. And really, Neil, it's just living the good life in my mind.
Right. I mean, all of us want that, right? I mean,
yeah.
That's I would say a goal for all of us, to live a long, healthy, productive life. Tell me more about some of those factors. So, I mean, across these different blue zones across the globe, like, what were some of the commonalities?
Yeah, so there's here they have it they have it divided into 4 basic groupings. 1 is connection, 2 is exercise, 3 is having the right outlook on life, and then 4 is dietary. So the Power 9 move naturally. The people in these cultures, they don't go to the gym every day, but they garden and they walk, and they get general, just regular exercise, doing normal everyday activities. So that's an important component. The purpose here, waking up every day, knowing what their purpose is, and then finding time to relax throughout the day, whether it be they're showing a guy meditating here, or it could be a nap, which I don't get enough time to nap, Neil.
Yeah.
How's your nap schedule these days?
Not good. And as you know, baby number 5 on the way. My nap schedule will not be good. So
something for us to improve on.
Room for improvement.
Yep, without a doubt. The other part is eating wisely. So this 80% rule here, they talk about considering your appetite, filling yourself up to 80%. That's for you, and the last 20% is for the doctor. So that's where health concerns could arise. Right here, plant slant. Most of these cultures have predominantly plant-based diets. They eat meat, but more as in celebration or 1 or 2 times a week. It's not a part of every meal. Drinking red wine is common to these cultures. And then over here, this is one of my favorite ones, belonging. Most of these people belong to a faith-based community. Putting loved ones first, putting family first is super important. And then hanging out with the right people that are going to help you grow, that have the same values, that might help you live these principles. That's the basics there, Neil.
I'm curious on it. Was there one thing that was more important than the others, either for happiness or longevity?
I just try to do all these things because, like I said, it's living the good life. when you're living this way and eating healthy and spending time with your family and going to church on a regular basis, and thinking about getting naps and keeping their body moving. These are this it just it's the good life. And so I think the emphasis was that they do all these things, and it just becomes a natural part of their living. But I think one of the tricky parts is our culture is so fast paced, Neil, that a lot of times this stuff doesn't happen naturally in our lives. So we have to be intentional about it.
Right.
We have to think, okay, is this what I want my life to look like? Can I find value in it? And then once you get to that point, being intentional, making it happen, and then at least for me and my family, it's just become second nature.
Yeah, I like to think of there's a liturgy to life, sort of like a system that we go through. There's like a repetitive process, and these little things we do repetitively over years and decades, bear fruit into our lives. It sounds like with these the blue zones, it's sort of that similar concept of like you're in your liturgy of the life that you live. There's a fruit that comes about from that, which is happiness and longevity, etc. Yeah.
So and Neil, if anyone's interested too, they on the website they have a couple quizzes you can take. That kind of just measures where you're at with these principles. There's a happiness quiz, and then also a longevity quiz. And I love taking quizzes, so I do it every couple of years just to see what my results are.
I like that. So obviously, we're financial advisors. We're not life coaches or dietitians or those sorts of things. So how would you say you might take some of these principles, if somebody were in retirement or maybe even before retirement, and like, how would they maybe prioritize their life, with these things in mind? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I was going to actually aim that question at you, Neil. It's a good question. One of the things that I was excited about is we have conversations like this on a regular basis. And I didn't think of this being part of financial planning. So the fact that you were excited to talk about it got me excited. So Neil, I'm throwing that back to you. How could this you've had a lot of conversations with clients. How could this add value to their life?
Sure.
Pre-retirement and post-retirement. I know you've mentioned a lot of times when people retire, they don't have that right tribe, right, that they've been working with for their whole life. And so there's a gap there. So that's one aspect, right? You can be conscious of the fact that, hey, I'm going to have to find a network of people. But what else, what else comes to mind?
Well, for me, I guess I think of I did a CE study a little while ago. It was done by an insurance company, and they were discussing like what maximized happiness in retirement. And we've all heard the phrase, money doesn't buy, you can't buy happiness, right? Money doesn't make you happy. Everybody kind of knows that. I mean, a lot of times you don't know it until you've experienced that fact that it doesn't make you happy. And so I think with these things in mind, if we make money the servant towards the end, if you know the things that actually will make you happy, then money kind of takes the back seat and becomes sort of a vehicle, you could say, to achieving the goal that you want to achieve. I think oftentimes you've heard me say, sometimes the money becomes a thing in and of itself, but there's no satisfaction ultimately in that. If you got $1 million, you want 2. If you got 2, you want 4. And so that desire never ends. But how do you maximize with the means that we do? Every one of us has a different different means. But how do we maximize our means towards the right ends? And I think that's where you can have you can align, you can make money the servant towards the end. So an example of that might be if we're thinking, maybe should I buy that red wine or the white wine? Sounds like red is the better one to buy. Maybe that's one thing. In that CE class I went through, there was like hierarchy, and it was health was number 1 as far as like maximizing health, happiness in retirement, and then long-term relationships was number 2, and finances was number 3 in the order. Certainly I would say there's probably a financial aspect. There's just somebody's life in there somewhere. I don't know where that would be exactly. Money tends to apply to just about anything that we want in life. We can think of every place we put $1 in our budget as an investment, whether we're taking our wife out to dinner or buying a book or paying for a vacation with the family. These are all investments ultimately in long-term happiness. Anything else, John, you want to add to that?
I think that's it. But I think let's keep the conversation going and maybe revisit this later.
That sounds great. Yeah.